Hi, my name is James Mariano, and this presentation serves as an analysis of dystopian concepts for Info 215 at Drexel University. Black Mirror is a show that offers a dystopian story based on modern technological advancements in every episode. In this episode from Season 3, Men Against Fire, we look at how technological implants can be used against us in an unexpected and damaging way. The story is based around the member of an army unit whose main purpose is to eliminate these zombie-like enemies known as roaches. The Army unit works together using networked biological implants to share sight and additionally use augmented reality as a part of sharing tactical plans. The main character is quick to earn praise for his combat abilities, however, shortly after starts experiencing a disruption in his technologically enhanced sensory. As the episode moves on, we learn more about the roaches and the dysfunction of the technology as our protagonist ultimately decides his true character at the end. To start, this episode borrowed from other real-life and fictional components. The social relationships between civilians and roaches could sometimes be easily seen as a parallel between European Christians and Jews during the times of World War II. Within the first few minutes of the episode, we see a town in turmoil with people pleading with the army to eliminate the roaches that are assumed to be at fault. Shortly afterwards, as the army seeks out the enemy, we see a man being interrogated by them on his hiding of roaches within his farmhouse. As soldiers scoured the house, the questioning was very similar to the Nazis questioning civilians. Secondly, as we are first introduced to the roaches, we see a very strong zombie culture influence. We see pale, hissing, humanoid creatures with sharpened teeth. We also learn by this point that these creatures are formed from bad or contaminated blood, which could also draw more attention to the World War II theme. The Army talks about how nations are effectively reducing the creation of these creatures by separating bloodlines. Finally, 1984 seemed to creep in as well. At the end, we see the protagonist debating on how to answer a finalizing question, similarly to how Winston needed to decide on what he was to believe was truth. It is a character-defining moment of the episode that leaves you feeling a very certain way about it. It should also be noted that the last two of these items are dystopian examples in and of themselves. Merriam-Webster dictionary describes a dystopia as an imaginary place where people lead dehumanized and often fearful lives. Moving from this definition, dystopias contain some of the characteristics listed on this slide. From this list, we're looking at 4 specifically. These 4 highlighted characteristics are touched upon throughout this episode, however they may not be so easily apparent. First, we look at how propaganda is used to control the citizens of society. The way the roaches are conveyed at the beginning of this episode isn't entirely accurate, as we find out later on. Again, drawing comparisons to World War II, information becomes distorted to paint a picture of what is considered an enemy to the society. Secondly, with that information, independent thought and freedom are restricted. Without giving too much away, it's later explained that some of the sensory complications are a result of the implanted technology and ulterior motives of others. Next, as was already explained, the roaches are a species that were once thought to be human. However, our protagonist is corrected at one point using the word he instead of it when referring to a roach. Finally, although society as a whole is not an illusion within this episode, we see some lines becoming blurred as we learn more as the story develops, specifically in accepting what is truth and what isn't. Additionally, we see 4 types of dystopian controls listed on this slide. Within this episode, one specifically calls to mind, and it shouldn't be a surprise. Throughout this episode, we see more about how the technological implants aren't just a means of enhancing sensory, but also as a means of controlling thoughts and actions between soldiers. More specifically, these implants serve 2 fundamental purposes. First, they allow the Army unit to exchange information with each other using shared augmented reality. Tactical plans were discussed using 3-dimensional holographic modeling that wasn't visible to the outside world. Secondly, as drones were used to survey an area, the visual was directed straight to the implants. Additionally, we see advanced translation services used throughout the episode, allowing on-the-fly interpreting between languages. This could be seen as a utopian instance in which people could more effectively communicate with each other. This episode chimes in on 3 important topics to consider. The most obvious of which is the first point, in which, as a society, we're already mixing technology with our human selves in fairly invasive ways. As mentioned in an article for Futurism magazine, bionic eyes are currently FDA approved, however not as advanced as shown in this episode. People are also implanting RFID chips for various purposes, such as opening doors, unlocking cars, and storing information directly into their bodies. Secondly, wearable technology may not be as invasive, yet still has similar concerns, especially regarding augmented reality and how it's used. Finally, putting these two items together, we can see our reliance on technology and how it can be detrimental in our decision-making abilities. So in conclusion, there are obviously advantages with using technological aids. There are currently 285 million people worldwide with vision impairment who could benefit from the advancements in current technology. Currently, one US company called Second Sight develops these devices, in which case users are able to see shadows and outlines of figures. Additionally, augmented reality offers much in how digital information can become more meaningful when mixing it with the physical world. For example, as Billinghurst writes in his paper, Augmented Reality in Education, doctors can overlay virtual ultrasound images on a patient's body to perform biopsy tasks more easily. The dystopian concepts, to me, serve two purposes. First, it offers effective storytelling. These concepts are truly science fiction, however, they are not out of the realm of future possibility. These technologies could very likely exist in the near future, which ties into the second point. Dystopias illustrate to us possibly unforeseen side effects. As much as dystopian concepts can add to a story, they should additionally be considered in future development of technologies. It's important to understand how advancements can be used against us.